Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPen.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Ahead of UFC 312, we got a good lineup here for you. First up, we're going to be joined by Jimmy Crute, who's finally back in action here against Rodolfo Bellato. A really good shout. Jimmy, always enjoy talking to him. He also said after his last fight, he's going to take some time off. And he last fought in July of 2023. So took a long time off, almost 2 years, and he's really looking forward to this one. He said he needed that time off to kind of just refresh his brain and just kind of get back into that attitude that he is, that still this top guy, and he's really looking forward to this matchup against Adolfo Bellato. And then we close things out talking to UFC newcomer Kody Steele out of his fight against Rong Zhu. This is I know it's no longer opening up the card; it's up on the prelims a bit, but Kody Steele, undefeated prospect. He's actually living with Vince Morales out in Vegas. That's how I kind of got hooked up with him, but really good chat with Kody, who was looking to put a statement in his UFC debut, and really he wants to be known as fun fights. He said obviously he wants to win fights, but he wants to be a guy that people are always looking forward to watching fight, get those bonuses, and be like a Gaethje like type guy. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio.
All right, we're joined by UFC light heavyweight Jimmy Crute is back in action at UFC 312. Jimmy, how's it going, man?
I'm good, man. Yeah, really good. How are you going?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, been a bit since we last saw you. I know after the last fight, you kind of said you're going to be taking a bit of time off. Was this kind of the right time frame, or is this sooner than what you thought you'd be back?
Um, I think it's happening exactly when it's supposed to be honest. Um, we asked to go a little bit earlier, but the UFC asked me to wait for Sydney. So here we are.
Oh, what kind of was the reason for just kind of taking some time? Was it just kind of a mental reset to kind of get away from the sport for a bit?
Yeah, bro. I had to let my body heal. I had a lot of injuries and mentally too. I just needed to take a step out of the pressure cooker and just freshen up mentally. Like give my brain a rest, give my body a rest, give my mental health a rest, come back to myself a little bit.
And then this Sydney date, I imagine, was one you were probably circling. So how happy are you to be on this card and fighting at home in Australia?
I'm stoked, man. No travel, roll in, fight, 50-minute flight home. It's the best, and the hometown crowd or the home country crowd. There's something special about it. So I really look forward to putting on a show in front of the Aussies.
Your opponent in Rodolfo Bellato, I know it wasn't obviously the original guy you're supposed to fight, but how familiar were you with him when he kind of stepped up on not really short notice, I guess sort of short notice, but still probably decent enough time for him?
Yeah, I didn't know anything about him. I hadn't seen any of his fights, but when I looked at his fights, I was like, oh, yep, this is a tough fight. It's not one to be taken lightly. And I'm excited for it, man. It's going to bring out the best in me.
A striker, like a ton of power. So do you imagine he just kind of wants to keep this one standing against you?
I think he's a black belt too. I think he's pretty well rounded. I think I don't know where this fight's going to go because I can grapple, I can strike, he can grapple, he can strike. It's about who finds whose weakness first. I've in my mind, I've got a few weaknesses of his circled. I see a few things that I could probably capitalize on, but he's had a bit of time off too. So the only thing I can assume is he's gotten better as well. So just going to go out there and fight, and it's in God's hands.
Just kind of getting back to a bit on the break, like, do you think some of it was like just how early you got into the UFC? Like, you were like what, like 22, 23 when you got in? Like, you see a lot of guys aren't even getting in till like way later, where you kind of did a lot of growing up in the promotion and fighting the toughest guys.
Yeah, man, that's for sure. It's my life sort of went from 0 to 100 real quick. I'm just a kid from Bendigo, man. Like I never had like a athletic background growing up. I just did martial arts because I loved it, and I chose to chase my dream as soon as I seen the UFC. So for me, it was just like went from nobody to fighting the top guys in the world in the space of like however many years. Maybe that did have a part of it, but everything happens for a reason, and I was supposed to go through all that to make me who I am today.
What do you kind of take away from your last couple fights then?
Oh, what do I take away from them? A lot of lessons learned. There's been a lot of lessons learned mentally and physically. But for me, it's just about it's more mental for me. It's how I approach fights, how I approach training, how I approach my rest, how I approach my life outside of training. There's been a lot of lessons learned.
Do you think you kind of got a bit too comfortable then, maybe, of just like thinking you could just knock out a lot of these guys early, like how you kind of were in the UFC?
Maybe a little bit. I think my head got way too big for my boots, but at the same time, yeah, maybe.
Just back to this fight, like, is there any pressure on you just going in this one, like coming off the kind of the skid, a bit of a layoff? Like, is there, and then fighting so close to home, like, does that add any pressure to you?
There's always going to be pressure going into a fight. I want to win. I want to perform to the best of my ability. But I tell myself, my life is awesome no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
I get to be alive no matter what. So this fight, I'm training harder than I've ever trained for it. I've sacrificed more than I've ever sacrificed for any fight. But the pressure is off me because I love my life no matter what.
You bringing anyone different for this camp, or is it this kind of usual people you train with?
No, I've gone back to my original team, Sam Greco, Stewie Moulton, my two original coaches. So it's good.
Obviously, been a bit since you fought. What do you think that walkout will be like? Obviously, pretty high up on the card, ton of support you'll have. What do you think that's going to be like in Australia? Because you've already done it a couple times. It just kind of, with you being back, I feel like they'll pop even more.
Maybe. I know it's going to be special. It's going to be special. My first fight, my first pro fight, I remember walking out and thinking it's about time because it took so long to get my first pro fight. We trained for a long time and it was really challenging to find an opponent. I imagine that's going to be pretty similar walking through that octagon gate thinking like, it's good to be back. It's about time. So that's what I imagine it's going to feel like. It's going to be pretty special.
Both you and Adolfo finishers, like, kind of get each other out early. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out then?
Not one for predictions, man. I'm just going to go in there and do my absolute best. I think I can knock him out. I think I can do some damage to him on the ground. And I'm sure he feels the same about me. So may the best man win.
What do you think a win over him does for you? You're a guy like kind of always near the rankings. I know it's been a bit of a tough skid lately, but like a win here, I imagine kind of right back to where you were.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't care. I just want to keep fighting and keep winning fights. I'm not thinking about climbing the rankings or anything. I'm just happy to be back.
Is there a thought of maybe like just trying to slow it down a little bit and not be in a rush to get to the top, like maybe how you were and that when you first like kind of started off in the UFC?
I'll just fight whoever they put in front of me, bro. Whoever they ask me to fight, I'm gonna go fight. So I'm not gonna say no to any fight.
What is kind of the goal then for you this year?
Just be active. I wanna stay fit. I wanna stay healthy, and I wanna be fighting consistently. That's the only thing about my career where I'm like, is I've only fought twice a year since I've been in the UFC, and then I've had a big layoff now, and then before that was a bigger layoff. Not a bigger layoff, but sorry, another big layoff. So I just want to be consistent and fight consistently and stay fit and healthy and ready to go.
Well, Jimmy, that's all I had for you. So thanks so much for doing this again. I appreciate it.
Oh, good, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, we're joined UFC lightweight Kody Steele, who's making his debut down in Australia. Kody, how's it going, man?
Going. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Obviously, been a long time coming for you to make the debut. Like, we're getting pretty close to it. Like, is it surreal that it's still like that it's about to happen for you?
Yeah, feels crazy. I'm nervous for it and excited and very excited. But it's like kind of a dream come true. Ever since I was a kid, I was like always like pictured myself being like on a UFC card and being on a pay-per-view or something like this. And I'm not the main card, but I'm on the card, and it's still like, it's my debut. So, I got no pressure. I'm just going out there to have some fun and put on a show for everybody.
Obviously, I think a lot of people may know you from the grappling world. Like you're grappling all these like UFC guys, high level guys. Like, and even when you weren't a pro yet, like what kind of took you so long to do the pro side of MMA? Then they get away from grappling.
When I started grappling, it was mainly just to get to my MMA career. But my professor told me like, hey, you should wait till you're a purple belt till you go to MMA. I was like, all right, fine, deal. And then once I got to purple belt, I started training with these two kids, William and Andrew Tackett, and I just wanted to, they were so good and I could realize how good they were. So I was like, let me just like focus like some more time training with these kids and like learning from them and then everything. And then jiu-jitsu just kind of started popping off, getting more popular and more mainstream. And I was kind of like in the mix of it. So I was getting a lot of opportunity to compete with like the best guys in the world. And, so I didn't want to like go half in, halfway. I really wanted to go through and do the full thing. So once I got the black belt, I started competing with the guys, and then after a while, I was like, man, I don't even really want to do this jujitsu. Like, I just, this is just for my MMA. And so then I just decided, like, I was like, all right, I'm done with the jits. I'm gonna move on to MMA.
And then off to like this fight with Rong Zhu, like how familiar were you with him? Because he's had a couple fights on the UFC. I think he's in his second stint now.
Yeah. He's a tough fighter. He's got a lot of experience. He's which I have never fought anybody with the amount of experience he's had. So this will be another good test for me that I feel like I can handle. But it's he's gonna be a tough guy. I don't take anyone lightly. And in my eyes, he's the toughest guy I've fought, and I'm like prepared to give him my everything.
Making a debut in Australia, have you like talked to coaches or any teammates that have done that about like kind of the weight cut wise and like how you kind of got to plan everything out for that long of a flight?
Yeah, I'm going out there like a week before. So like I'm gonna leave like a Thursday and then I'll get there like on a Saturday. And then I'll just kind of try to adjust as much as I can, get a sweat in, and then when Monday comes around or something like that, Monday or Sunday, I'm gonna start water loading and then start the process of making the weight. And then once I make the weight, I think I'll be ready to go and fight.
Who's making the trip to Australia with you?
I'm gonna take my buddy William Tackett and
Mhm.
then John Wood.
I obviously train at Syndicate in Vegas. I know you're living with Vince right now. Like, who are kind of the main guys you're working with for this one?
Yeah, so I'll be working with Vince a lot. I was working with Marab a lot because he just got done
Mhm.
fighting on with against Umar. So we were drilling a lot, working a lot of things. And I've been working with Nazim Swadikov. I can never say his name very right,
Mhm.
but I've been working with him a lot, and then working with Evan Elder. So I've gotten a lot of tough rounds. I'd say I've gotten beat up more than I've like had success in this round and in this camp. But it's good because I know I'm prepared for battle. I'm prepared for like the heaviest and deep waters. So I'm happy.
I know a lot of people talk about like the UFC jitters with that first fight and the nerves. I think Contender Series kind of helps that a lot because I think that's probably a bit more nerve wracking, like kind of fighting. Do you think that's going to be a worry of like you talk to teammates, but kind of what to expect the whole fight week and everything to kind of limit that?
Yeah. I think I'm nervous because I think the dream is coming to a reality, so I'm a little nervous about that. But training with Marab and Vince and even like Khalil and all these guys who've all already walked this path, like I've already talked to them a bunch about how I'm feeling, and they've given me tons of advice. And I cornered my buddy Evan Elder in one of his fights, and it was really cool that I got to go do the whole experience, like do the weigh-ins and do it all, and watch him go through it, watch him get shuttled to the event, warm up, fight, go fight in the cage, and then leave. So it's like I feel like I've seen the process of it, which I think is like really cool because even for me, walking out from the tunnel to the cage, that was like, another really big like I was like, whoa, this is so cool, and but I think now like I've experienced that, so it's cool. Now this time I'm just gonna be fighting, and I think I'll be ready for like the challenge, when I fight. It's weird, like I'm nervous, and then I see the cage, I see the crowd, I see the people, and then I feel like my nerves honestly just go away, and I'm just like excited to be there, and I'm just like ready to go. So I'm excited for it, honestly.
Do you think, because like a lot of UFC fans just watch kind of UFC and then a bit of the contending series? Do you think a lot of guys will just think you're like the striker just from how you're kind of debuting and don't really know like how legit of a grappler you are?
Yeah, I don't know, I'm gonna be showing definitely some grappling. I know my opponent is gonna probably not want to go to the ground with me, and he's gonna be trying to keep that disengagement from me. But it's also a fight, so you never know. I'm definitely ready for whatever. But the takedowns are there. I'm taking the takedowns, and then if it gets to the ground, I'll be looking to finish it, and I'll take the submission if it's there. So I'll be looking for the finish on both sides of the spectrum. Whether if we're on the feet striking, I'll be trying to go for the kill, and if we're on the ground, I'll be looking for the finish.
What do you think a win? You kind of just answered that my next question, anyways, but what do you think a win kind of over Rongzhu does for you? Like, obviously, it is just your debut, but 1-0, say you do finish him, like, kind of can send a bit of a message to the division.
Yeah, I think there'll be some people watching, especially some guys in my division. Like they'll be kind of peeping on and seeing like what I'm about, especially because I'm fighting a very like well-rounded and tough guy. So if I go out there and I finish him in the first round and I make it and I do it fashionably, then I think it sends a message out to everyone in like the division. But at the same time, like I'm still like a little freaking baby in this sport. I'm still learning on the job. If I go out there and have a 3-round war with Rongzhu, I still think it shows like a message. At the end of the day, I'm going out there to perform and put on a show for everyone. I don't want to be someone who just tries to win and tries to squeak wins by. Like I'm out there. I like to have fun when I'm out there. I don't like to take things too serious, and yeah, but I'm always looking for the finish.
Just final thing, like, what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, fighting early February can kind of set you up to have a pretty big year and an active year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the goal this year for me that I've like written down is like get 3 to 4 fights in, make sure my weight's in check, which it always is, and yeah, go out there and win all 4 of my fights and change my life. Like just put myself in a different position, and like I said, just putting on entertaining fights. Like I don't care for the wins and losses. I'm just going out there to put on a show and be someone that people want to watch and then be a name in the UFC that people know. So that's the goal for me, getting here was, the goal and was the thing, but I already knew that was going to happen. And now, I'm on to the next chapter.
Oh, well, Kody, I appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.